Nothing but junk mail and overdue bills to keep me company. Seems nobody wants to hire a real private dick anymore, a professional like me. A guy who does the detective work nobody else wants to do. A guy who wears hats and walks around in a black and white world. I began contemplating a more profitable line of work, like politics.
We are the show you want to know. It's time to talk to you.
All right, folks, good afternoon and welcome to the Tuesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show here on AM 830 WCRN. You can join the conversation for the next hour at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. Our text line is available at 617-297-8388, 617-297-8388. It appears on the screen here in the studio. We tried to incorporate it into the conversation. For the common sense conversation for the common sense citizen. A lot going on today. President Trump is taking questions, talking about a wide range of things. What always kills me is when these reporters ask him these questions about, will you use military force here? Basically they're saying, what is your strategy? What do you do? And he says, I'm not going to answer that. You really want me to answer that? You can tell he's thinking, what an idiot you are. But that's going on. Also, by the way, 39th President of the United States, Jimmy Carter, he has departed Georgia today to lay in state at the Capitol ahead of his funeral. So that's happening as we're speaking. We'll talk more about Jimmy Carter, and if anybody would like to have their word or their input on it, I've said it. I can't even count how many times. Jimmy Carter, great human being. Not a great president, but a good person. And I think he did more for his legacy and his memory post-presidency. The things that went on while he was president have gotten slightly diminished in being the worst president that we've had, got trumped, no pun intended, by Joe Biden. Ted, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, one of the things about Jimmy Carter is that he was one of the first to look a journalist in the eyes when they asked him a question about sex. And he said, well, I never have, but I've lusted in my heart.
Yeah, I remember that.
So
I
that's
lusted
a good
in my
man.
heart. Yeah, you lusted in my heart. Whereas other presidents tried to do everything they could in reality and practicality. All right. This is the Joe Mangiacotti Show. Tuesday, the 7th. We have crucial topics to discuss, topics that demand our attention, regardless of political leanings. This is I think one of the toughest things doing an hour show every afternoon is, what do you want to talk about? I know I get messages. Well, Joe, did you hear? How come you didn't mention it? It's 59 minutes and 50 seconds minus commercials and intros and stuff, folks. We have X amount of time to get into things. But President-elect Donald Trump, right, he's reiterated a very firm stance on Hamas and the ongoing hostage crisis. I've been watching him most of the morning in my office while I'm trying to get other things done. And look, in 2 recent radio interviews, Trump made it crystal clear. He did it again, double, tripled, quadrupled down on it today. If those hostages aren't freed by the time he takes office on January 20th, and I'm quoting, there will be hell to pay, unquote. And the reporter is saying, well, what does that mean? And Trump, of course, it's pretty self-explanatory, isn't it? You fill in the blanks. It's hell to pay. And you know who's going to be right there next to the United States of America? Israel. In any intelligence or military way that we need them. His resolve stands strong. With implications of such a statement leaving many to wonder, what actions might follow. I don't know how that can be. To me, that's not vague, okay? Hell to pay. And yes, You'd be lucky, so lucky if that's all you got. Okay? Look, this is exactly what the current president should have said an hour after we realized American hostages were scooped up that day. He should have drawn a line in the sand, a very deep, hard line. We weren't in this. You brought us in it. You took American hostages. You released them within the hour, or else. But we don't have a president that would do that. Yeah. Sound effects are great. They say so many words. Well, with the implications of such a statement, leaving many to wonder what's going to happen. See, now we also have Anthony Blinken, Secretary of State. He recently has admitted that pressure from the U.S. in visible public daylight between the U.S. and Israel, that emboldened Hamas. What does that mean? It means Joe Biden not resolutely standing with Israel, making sure the world understood what an ally they are in that solid relationship between Israel and the United States, allowing daylight to seem to appear between these two governments, emboldened Hamas, causing setbacks in any potential ceasefire and hostage dealings. Blinken's admission shines a spotlight on the delicate diplomacy and the consequences of foreign policy decisions that resonate beyond the borders. And every day, right, we're getting trickles and trickles of just how messed up this administration has been. And really, to what extent Joe Biden's condition has affected the world. When we're finding out the cabinet members never met him in the capacity of their jobs, they couldn't reach him. And when they tried to reach him, they'd get chief of staff call him, chew them out, and then Joe Biden call apologetically. And these are Secretary of Defense, people who, while situations are unfolding, they need direction and authorization from POTUS. And POTUS was not reachable. President of the United States, for those that didn't catch up on the POTUS acronym.
Again, Joe, this is dereliction of duty.
Oh, beyond dereliction. It's criminal.
Without leave. And he's commander-in-chief. He's subject to the military court.
Look, we're at a situation that if his decline in situation has crossed a line, a medical line to be determined by those with MD degrees, not me, then okay. Now we have to look at the people who pretended that he was cognitive and in command of his faculties. They have committed crimes. Any action they took in his name without his knowledge is treasonous. But it really is. It's the bottom line. And no one did what and our founding fathers laid out in the event of the situation that the president of the United States is unable or unwilling to fulfill the duties of the presidency. They shall be removed under the 25th Amendment, and immediately the vice president shall assume those duties. Now, I know it's funny and all the jokes you want about Kamala Harris presidency, but that's the system. That's the system. In the meantime, we had a president that was handled for 4 years, who had access to and was controlled, how long he went somewhere. We knew this years ago because the camera caught the instructions on cute little cue cards he carried in his pocket with pictures of the reporter, their name, what order to call on them, and how to answer the question they already were told they can ask. I mean, we saw this with our own eyes, folks. And we'll also take a look at the tension in our own government, where members of Congress, like Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, are now calling for Israel's government to fail. Can this rhetoric lead to more peaceful times in the Middle East? Or is it just a way for politicians to pander to their bases as they prepare for their individual elections? When you break it down, yeah, Ted, you want to add in?
It smells an awful lot like what Ike warned us about.
Yes, always, right? Military industrial complex, deep state, whatever you want to call it. We kind of all know what it is that we're talking about. And we know what's going on there. And this was cute. I don't know if you caught this, but some domestic stories. The defamation trial against CNN, that is ramping up, and which has caught many by surprise, from legal experts like Alan Dershowitz challenging the prosecution to growing public distrust in the media. We'll take a look at how this case could potentially reshape how media outlets report on public figures and whether this trend is harbinger or more legal battles to come. But CNN, because there was a case, the guy's out of Florida, he was helping with extraction, and they went on knowing that this guy committed absolutely no wrongdoing, didn't break the law, but being a former military person and black ops type person, he has a certain set of skills. I think that's from a movie line, right? So he used these skills to help extradite hostages and Americans. And CNN, knowing there's no evidence of wrongdoing or illegality, still labeled him black market. They sullied the man's reputation, and he's suing for defamation of character. They write a lot of checks for that, a lot of checks for that. And Whitney Cummings on New Year's Eve, she was pretty funny when she made a comment about she plays to arenas with 3,000 people, which happens to be more than CNN's viewing audience these days. But it seems like it's okay to make these jokes now, folks. But we're coming up to our first break on the Tuesday afternoon edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. Lines are open and available. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. That's 508-871-7000. Why don't you give us a call? Take part in the show. What say you? What do you have to say? Plenty more to cover here. Plenty more to talk about. So we'll come back on the other side. Stick with us back in 2 and 10, folks.
Looking for guidance as you face a future on Social Security? It's hard to figure out on your own. The MedicareAdvisors.com is a completely independent insurance agency specializing in Medicare insurance planning. We work with the top insurance companies so we can offer our clients the best coverage for them. We design plans with a focus on low costs, which we combine with personalized insurance advice aimed at helping our clients make better informed decisions. Russ Swallow is a certified senior advisor and a licensed insurance advisor. He's been helping clients with their health insurance needs since 1970. And after a failed attempt at retirement, he created the Medicare Advisors in 2014. Russ concluded that since Medicare is health insurance, he might as well put his almost 50 years of health insurance experience to good use, as 75,000 people reach age 65 in Massachusetts every year, and they can use some help. Call Russ today at 508-831-0805. Put his years of personal experience to work for you as you try to unravel the complexities of Social Security.
Hi, this is Phil George, the biochemist from Wellness Wave Radio. I don't recommend anyone that I don't do business with myself, so I'm glad that I found Doug at Meineke Car Center in Worcester. Since Meineke is a national company, the warranty will be honored by other Meineke shops nationwide. Just call 774-530-9009 or schedule an appointment online. Meineke, 661 Park Avenue, Worcester, keeping your wheels on the road.
Looking for a station that brings you all sides of the story? Tune in to 50,000-watt powerhouse WCRN, where the left and the right meet in the middle. Whether you lean left, lean right, or just want to stay informed, WCRN has you covered with diverse voices, lively debates, and thought-provoking discussions. From politics and health to pop culture, you'll hear it all right here. Radio Central, where opinions from both sides come together for the conversations that matter. From the center of the dial, the center of New England, and the center of information, AM 830, WCRN, Radio Central.
All right, folks, welcome back to the second segment of the Tuesday afternoon edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN Radio Central, from the center of the dial, the center of New England, in the center of information, AM 830 WCRN. Join the conversation. Lines open and available, 508-871-7000. Of course, we stream 24/7 on the TuneIn app, so you can take us anywhere. If you don't have the app, literally, it takes seconds to download it, put it on your phone, your tablet, what have you. And it's a great way to listen to the station when you're not near an AM radio. And of course, I stream my show on my social media platforms at Joe Mangi, M-A-N-G-I, Joe Mangi Show, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch TV, LinkedIn profile. You got the deal. We're also now streaming as well on the station's Facebook page, WCRN AM 830. And I think it goes to our YouTube channel too for the station as well. Another thing that wasn't in my original prep of the show, but U.S. District Judge Aileen Cannon, remember her, who is just being a judge and seems to be making decisions based on the legal merits of a case, ordered in an on-sign order, she barred Merrick Garland, Smith, or any Justice Department officials from publishing the comprehensive details about the prosecution of Trump. And now this Jamojan is wanting to sentence Trump in a few days before he's sworn in. And I've talked about this. They really want that term. And you can't officially actually refer to him as a convicted felon until you've exhausted your appeals and the sentence is set and done and can't be challenged and it's recorded. Is it? Now, he said he's not going to have jail. Can you imagine this? And here's the thing, okay? And if this doesn't illustrate, I don't know what does, because I've talked about this on the show. You guys have participated in this conversation. I've gone the round around with the sisters and at home asking the same question Alan Dershowitz asked, because he was in a televised exchange recently. Alan Dershowitz, very left Harvard lawyer. I mean, I remember him being on TV as a kid. I was watching this guy. He's been around forever. And he's the old school lib. You may not agree with him. You may not agree with you, but he wants to hear you. He'll defend your right to be heard, even if he doesn't agree with you. He's not the new left. You don't agree with me, you need to be silenced. That's not him. He's the old school guy. And he challenged former Hartford Mayor Luke Bronin to identify the specific crime President-elect Donald Trump was convicted of. Following a Manhattan jury's verdict on felony charges related to non-disclosure agreement with Stormy Daniels. Now, Dershowitz criticized the prosecution, claiming there was no valid crime. Well, Bronin supported the jury's verdict on the basis that they found him guilty, but he can't say what the crime was. And nobody can exactly describe the crime, because you had Alvin Bragg, who scoured books, trying law books and criminal code to come up with something. And when he couldn't, he constructed something. And then took this very biased jury pool, and in the instructions from the judge actually did not include, and it's all in articles, you can go read it yourself. The instructions didn't say you need to identify the crime. If you think this, and this, then you say yes. And remember, the premise of this crime is that a bookkeeper entered a payment. The payment itself is not illegal, especially when $17 million of your tax dollars has been paid out by members of Congress in similar situations. Non-disclosure agreements, basically hush money. So hush money on its own is not an illegal thing. It happens every day, folks. And non-disclosure agreements are signed every day in business, in politics. I've gone to meetings where I had to sign an NDA to take the meeting so that I'm not allowed to share that meeting took place or what was said in the meeting. It happens every day. So paying that money is not a crime. Having an NDA, not a crime. He tried to say he paid it out of his own money, not campaign money. Now, imagine if he used campaign money, then that would have been wrong. You used campaign money for this on some weird thing that because you tried to pay this, it was because you were going to run for president. Well, first of all, duh. Every single politician tries to clean their act up before they run for public office. But we can also look at Donald Trump's history as a billionaire playboy type of guy who has probably paid more money than most of us will make in a life out on hush money and NDAs over 40 years. It's just silly. So you wanted to jump in?
Yeah. Judge Marchand is subject, as all judges, to judicial misconduct.
Yes.
And I've got a very long list of things that qualify. Fourth on the list is engaging in partisan political activity.
Yeah. And we got to go back to, because we've talked about it on previous shows, how did this guy end up the judge on this case? He wasn't up in rotation. And that's just how judges, they're in rotation. It's kind of a spin of the wheel, draw the luck type of thing. Okay, case comes up. This judge is, the docket's clear. They're the next one waiting for a case. They get it. That's not how Marchand got this. Who has very strong ties to the Democratic Party. His daughter is a big fundraiser activist. So going back to Dershowitz, he has this television. He's on television. They're having this exchange, and he challenges Bronin, what's the crime? Dershowitz argued that Trump's conviction was based on a non-crime, and the case was weak, and Trump is scheduled for sentencing in a few days on the 10th, with expectations, of course, for no prison penalty, but still there. And Bronin's response is, well, there must be a crime because a jury convicted him. And you've heard this. I know you've heard this when we talk about, grand juries, and not that this was actual trial, but I'm saying a grand jury, it's a joked within the legal halls that you can indict a bologna sandwich because in that case, you don't have two sides. You're just having a prosecutor laying out to these people, these are the elements of the crime. Nobody's disputing them or what have you, and you can get a conviction. So this order that Judge Cannon has said, the order will only remain in effect until 3 days after the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 11th Circuit rules whether Smith's appointment as special counsel was unconstitutional. Remember this. We're going to go back to the fact that the Trump team brought up the fact that, wait a minute, under what authority is Jack Smith even operating? For all intents and purposes, they basically grabbed somebody off the street and said, why don't you prosecute a former president? He wasn't working at the DOJ. He didn't come by means of a selective committee or anything of that nature. So I think a lot of what they tried to do with abusing the law and pretzeling these charges hopefully will result in some kind of reform as well. See, Smith recently unsealed 2 indictments against Trump 2 years ago. First, the Southern Florida 2023 in June for hoarding these classified documents after leaving office, and second in D.C. of August of 23 for allegedly conspiring to overturn the 2020 election, which of course he did not. And that's evident with the please go peacefully and patriotically to protest and his tweets that supported that. And the fact that what they did to Mar-a-Lago in his home is disgusting, and those were all props. And I've talked about this because I don't think enough people point out the fact that those pictures that emerged from the Mar-a-Lago raid, if you were to take the visual of it, you're thinking, these were just thousands of documents. What did the guy do? Take the National Archives? But those boxes, what they call the banker boxes that we saw in the bathroom and off the ballroom and all those places at Mar-a-Lago, they were loaded with all kinds of stuff. Napkins from parties and menus and trinkets. Apparently Trump the big souvenir guy. He collects all that stuff. And when you get down to it, he had 117 what they considered classified documents. In respect to Joe Biden, who had almost 18,000 in his garage, in his office in Chinatown, at UPenn, who, by the way, obtained all those classified documents before he was president, meaning he never, ever, at the time of taking those out of SCIFs and out of meetings or what have you, did not have the authority to take them in the first place. Comparing Biden and Trump's cases is apples and oranges. Trump, those 117 documents they're claiming he shouldn't have kept or had, he took as president. And I would argue the fact that by virtue of being president, if he takes them, they're declassified. Period. I mean, to declassify them, you don't have to face east and turn 3 ways clockwise. There's no ceremony. Like the president just declassifies. So I really think he's covered. But Joe Biden didn't have any right to have possession of any of those almost 2,000 files. And then you look at, they were scattered all over the place. At least Trump's files were in a double locked room because we have the emails that when the Secret Service, the archives and the Justice Department inspected Mar-a-Lago, the only response they had was, hey, on that room that is locked in, could you put a second lock? Yeah, no problem. So it's in a double locked room in one of the most secure states in the country with Secret Service guarding it 24/7. But they're okay with the classified documents in water-soaked boxes in a garage, in a non-secured office in Chinatown, or at UPenn. Well, UPenn must be the most secure because that's where the Tara Reid files are too. You know, the one that he allegedly sexually assaulted inside the halls of the Capitol, the Senate chambers. All right, folks, we're coming up to our mid-show break here on the Tuesday afternoon edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. Lines open and available, 508-871-7000. If you want to join the conversation, that's 508-871-7000. Give us a call. What say you? We've got a lot more to talk about. Like I said, Donald Trump's burning it up right now, or he was when I left to come in the studio. All right, guys, stick with us. We'll be back on the other side in 10.
Time now for the forecast from the Boston Independence Group Weather Center. Call Jerry Doherty today at 877-772-1776. Retirement is within reach.
I'm meteorologist Sherry Spearn. Here's the latest Boston 25 weather on Radio 830 WCRN. It's going to be cold. It's going to be windy. It's going to be partly sunny today, although highs will make it into the mid and the upper 20s. Wind chills will always stay in the single digits or the lower teens. So just brace yourself for a really cold forecast through Thursday. We'll get some brief relief on Friday, and then we're tracking a potential Saturday storm with some light snow. I'm meteorologist Sherry Spearn. You can hear Boston 25 live for the Morning Drive weekdays on AM 830 WCRN.
Information central to your day from Radio Central, 830 WCRN.
Looking for guidance as you face a future on Social Security? It's hard to figure out on your own. But MedicareAdvisors.com is a completely independent insurance agency specializing in Medicare insurance planning. We work with the top insurance companies so we can offer our clients the best coverage for them. We design plans with a focus on low costs, which we combine with personalized insurance advice aimed at helping our clients make better informed decisions. Russ Swallow is a certified senior advisor and a licensed insurance advisor. He's been helping clients with their health insurance needs since 1970. And after a failed attempt at retirement, he created the Medicare Advisors in 2014. Russ concluded that since Medicare is health insurance, he might as well put his almost 50 years of health insurance experience to good use, as 75,000 people reach age 65 in Massachusetts every year, and they can use some help. Call Russ today at 508-831-0805. Put his years of personal experience to work for you as you try to unravel the complexities of Social Security.
All right, folks, welcome back to the second half of the Tuesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. Phone lines are open and available, 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. That's 508-871-7000. What say you? We got a lot to talk about. Again, Jimmy Carter left Georgia earlier today to go to the Capitol and state, and then he'll be buried in a couple of days with the funeral. Good guy, not a great president, but a good guy. I did also want to talk about the fact that the Pentagon has labeled more Chinese companies as military nature, which is kind of funny because by the virtue of being a Chinese company, there's a fusion between the military, the CCP, and all private companies. They're all monitored by and have to respond to the government there and the military. In the military, they get to look at all of your research, all of your records, all of your contacts, all your they're part of it. So to add these companies, it's just always a funny thing to me. 508-871-7000. Lines are open and available. Let's go to the phones. Ken has been waiting patiently. Hey, Ken, what say you?
Good afternoon, Joe. I must say that presidential style press conference that was going on around noon when I was having lunch, boy, that guy is sharp as a tack. Just a little sharper than Joe Biden.
Just a little bit, right? Again, no teleprompters, no pre-authorized questions, no card in his pocket with the reporter's picture and what order to call them on, and your answer written because they've already, been told the question they're allowed to ask. And I don't know how much you saw of it or what have you, but these reporters asking, and I love this whole conversation going on about Canada is the 51st state, which I think it's not necessarily. We're looking at a 51st state, but kind of a much stronger alliance, almost like the European Union type thing, because of the fact that, it strengthens our security, the resources that they have, like Trump was pointing out in this impromptu presidential press conference going on this morning, is we don't really need them. What are they? I mean, we can make our own cars here. We've got as much timber as we need. He listed all the things, and if it wasn't for the American trade, they would dissolve economically. And the reporters are saying, well, if you're talking about using military might for the Panama Canal, will you use military might for Canada? And Trump's like, no, economic might. What is wrong with you people? And the issue with Panama, of course, is they violated really what the agreement, what the treaty was. And he said, we didn't give it to Panama for China to run. It was meant for them to run it. And it's in the treaty that they have to keep things fair, the fees and who has access to it. These are the things that you can take control. We're giving this to you, even though we lost 38,000 lives and it cost a fortune of American tax dollars. And it couldn't, people have tried to build it. It wasn't until we brought in the people who in the biggest part of the Panama Canal was actually sanitary. It was the sanitation. It was figuring out how to keep them from dying from dysentery and disease. And it was, I think, a former military officer who handled the logistics and figured out how we can make this big project and we can import these American workers and not have them die from infections and disease. And that's how it got built. And so it got built with a not just a great cost to American taxpayers, but American life as well. And it's not being run fairly. So I understand that there. And then of course there's a Greenland that he wants to buy, which is again, that would be interesting, right? I mean, that hasn't happened since Alaska, but I'm sorry, Ken. Go ahead with your thought on. So you got to watch some of it.
Well, let me touch on two of the topics you just mentioned. One, Canada, and the last one, Greenland. First, on Canada, everybody knows who the next prime minister is going to become after a parliamentary election. And his name starts with a P. It's 4 syllables, and everybody's having a hard time remembering how to pronounce it. I too. but he's going to be probably Trump's closest ally.
Yeah.
In the next 4 years, or whenever I think within 6 months, he's all but certain to become the prime minister. And those who have heard him speak, you think that he deals with the press in a cuff and direct way. Or Trump does. This guy, he's right up there with Trump. And he doesn't have the edges. He just, has this slick little knife and just cuts them up like it's nothing.
Yeah.
And so the two of them are going to be really together in a lot of things. And so I suspect a lot of the threatening stuff that Trump was doing with Trudeau will go by the wayside. But this guy will.
Well, that was because it was
be
Trudeau.
Right. Now, when it comes to Greenland, I heard a week or two ago this talk as it started. Just set it aside. And then I'm hearing experts talk about it, and I don't anticipate there becoming a territory of the United States.
No, I don't think it'll be a territory, Ken. I think it will just be some kind of revamped alliance where...
Yes, now you head in my direction.
Yeah.
So the thing that many people might not know is the citizens of Greenland literally have the capacity right now, today, to choose who they'd like to hook up with, let's say, through a ballot vote. So literally, they could, express their interest in becoming citizens of the United States by voting as such.
Yeah,
I don't think, and we don't, you don't either, believe that's going to be the outcome. But yes, I think there's going to be two-part alliance. One is going to be on economic, so there's going to be a Greenland trade pact, and the second is some form of NATO-like agreement. And I wouldn't be surprised. This is classic that Trump demands NATO be part of supporting Greenland.
Yeah. Well,
Funding whatever.
This is the thing, right?
Necessary to support them.
Yeah,
because that's actually the number one issue, is protecting them from Russia and China.
Okay, good. So this is what it kind of came out. He kind of came out a little bit this morning. Was talking about this, folks. I'm going to jump around here for a minute. First of all, with Greenland, I could see something coming up where we open more bases and expand bases that we have there, and they basically come under the protection of the United States in conjunction with NATO. In exchange, they are loaded with all kinds of natural resources, minerals and elements and things we need. And it's strategically an incredible, I mean, you got Russia, China, even Iran and North Korea they have vessels in the Arctic Circle. And it's a very strategic location for both offensive and defensive positions on the planet. So I think there's something down the road with Greenland that's going to solidify the relationship between the U.S. and Greenland. And then as far as Ukraine goes, and Trump finally, because nobody has really talked about this, Joe Biden screwed this up too, folks, because just like he screwed up the petrodollar and allowing the oil to be traded on another currency other than the American dollar, he also, what prompted Putin to say, okay, was the understanding for many years that NATO wouldn't get any closer to his front door. And that included Ukraine. And Ukraine was not going to be part of NATO. There wasn't even any talk of that until Joe Biden said, yeah, let's make Ukraine. Well, now you just knocked on Putin's front door and you changed the rules. You changed the understanding, because the understanding was NATO wasn't going to expand any closer to the borders of Russia, and Russia in turn wasn't going to expand any further than they have.
It was provocative.
It was provocative. Poked him in the eye.
Flipped him the bird.
All of that. He did that. And that is when Putin said, okay, I guess that agreement's no longer standing. So I guess I have to take it. And bring it back into the fold of Mother Russia type of thing. And so we've got the petrodollar being attacked because Joe Biden allowed that to happen, and he allowed it when he seized those funds, and the other countries looked at that and said, would he do that? Would America or this guy do that to us? Yes, we do. Well, you know what? The BRICS nation, that gave them all the footing they need to start trading oil in other, like the yen. Okay. And then Joe Biden indicating it's okay for NATO to go into Ukraine, then that did away with that deal. So you had what was often referred to as the Doomsday Pact, which Richard Nixon put into effect in 1974 with Saudi Arabia, under the understanding that all oil will be traded in the American dollar, giving us that economic might, and that we will sell them all the toys they want, meaning fighters and jets and weapons, and they'll invest all that money back into the United States. And that has stood since 1984 until Joe Biden became president, Ken.
And we had to turn it all upside down because some of this, as you described, may have been at the direction of Joe Biden, but I'm guessing most of it was the shadow government.
Well, that's the problem, right? Because we've learned more and more that he wasn't making any decisions really from day one. So we got to say the Biden administration and whatever powers were really running the. And by the way, that guy, the conservative leader in Canada, it's Pierre. Is that the guy who was eating the apple, talking to the reporter? And the reporter said, some people, that classic reporter, oh, people say. And he said, who? What people? Well, I don't know. People. Well, you guys said the question, man. So you must have somebody in mind. It was like he was talking to Elon Musk. It was great. It's Pierre Povolari or something like that.
Right.
Yeah, I think he'll probably emerge because, look, they've gone about.
Just call him four-syllable P.
Oh, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, we'll learn his name soon enough, I'm pretty sure. Thanks for the call, Ken. Appreciate it. Yeah, it's the talk that's going. So I'm going to throw this in because it's out there with everything else. And Trump even made a joke about it earlier today about changing it from the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. I mean, that goes back. I don't know if you remember this, Ted. I don't know if you remember this years ago. I think it was a Jon Stewart or somebody. It was way back in the early 2000s with the BP gas spill. And some comedian made a joke. I think it was Stewart who said something like, no, we should change it to the Gulf of America. We broke it. We bought it, meaning that we ruined the Gulf with the BP oil. Of course, that was a British petroleum tanker, actually, or rig, not a tanker, a rig. Anyway, we're going to take our mid-show break here on the Tuesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. 508-871-7000. Back in 2 and 10, folks.
Looking for guidance as you face a future on Social Security? It's hard to figure out on your own. But MedicareAdvisors.com is a completely independent insurance agency specializing in Medicare insurance planning. We work with the top insurance companies so we can offer our clients the best coverage for them. We design plans with a focus on low costs, which we combine with personalized insurance advice aimed at helping our clients make better informed decisions. Russ Swallow is a certified senior advisor and a licensed insurance advisor. He's been helping clients with their health insurance needs since 1970. And after a failed attempt at retirement, he created the Medicare Advisors in 2014. Russ concluded that since Medicare is health insurance, he might as well put his almost 50 years of health insurance experience to good use, as 75,000 people reach age 65 in Massachusetts every year, and they can use some help. Call Russ today at 508-831-0805. Put his years of personal experience to work for you as you try to unravel the complexities of Social Security.
Polar Park is the place to play, so treat yourself to a private suite at the best ballpark in AAA. Suite rentals are the best way to enjoy a fully catered and climate-controlled experience at the park. Whether you choose to watch the game from inside of the suite or out in your seats, it's the ultimate experience for a special occasion. Visit WooSox.com or call 508-500-8888 to reserve your suite today.
Divorce and remarriage. It's a controversial subject clearly addressed in the Bible. Each weekend, Pastor Ray McMahon shares the truth of God's Word on the unbreakable covenant of marriage during the Jesus is Our Shepherd broadcast. Don't miss this opportunity to learn God's instructions by listening to the Jesus is Our Shepherd broadcast each weekend on this station.
Tune in every Sunday at noon.
All right, folks, welcome back to the fourth and final segment of the Tuesday afternoon edition here of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN Radio Central, folks. 508-871-7000. 508-871-7000. Lines are open and available. Join the conversation. What say you? Text line 617-297-8388. So Trump was killing it this morning out there answering the questions. And he has a cold or something. I mean, you know. He's meeting all kinds, right? He's calling Republicans and business leaders down in Mar-a-Lago. Mary Worth, the Post. What was her first name? Mary Worth, the Post woman who built Mar-a-Lago. Meriwether Post. She always wanted it to be the winter White House, and it's de facto has become that. I mean, she had no idea that somebody like a Donald Trump is going to purchase this thing and then become two-term president
and that
unconsecutively.
Property, my God.
You know, he even made a comment earlier because it got onto the, the cases, and the judge put a value of $18 million on Mar-a-Lago, and Trump was pretty funny because he goes, that chandelier, he's in the ballroom, he points at the chandelier, he goes, that chandelier is worth about $18 million. I mean, that's a buildable lot where he is. Right, the condos across the little waterway, the one where Harry Carr has a unit in, the rooftop penthouse there, I think is $40 million, and somebody just purchased it. And they haven't released the name, at least maybe they have since I read this article. For $100 million, they bought the top of this building. I think it might be Elon. I mean, he's living in a villa at one of the villas at Mar-a-Lago right now, but The value of Mar-a-Lago is into the hundreds of millions of dollars, people. Hundreds of millions of dollars. It's too coastal. There's waters on both sides of it. That's crazy. But yeah, so yesterday, and we talked about it a little bit when I came on the air, it was happening. The certification. So Trump is officially now the 47th president. Well, I guess he's certified. He's not really officially the president until he's sworn in on the 20th. And of course, it was a little sharp contrast from this time 4 years ago, and the preceding. And I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna give Kamala Harris some kudos. She certified this election, and she did it in a very professional manner as president of the Senate and sitting vice president. She certified Donald Trump 312 electorals to her 226. So yes, 4 years ago, it was a much different situation. I just don't believe it wasn't an orchestrated riot, right? It went bad. It's a day that went south. It was not a good day. It wasn't a planned insurrection. I think Trump made a comment about that today. It's the only insurrection that I ever heard of without a gun. The only gun was the Capitol Police, which also made reference to, because this continued lie that 7 people died that day and 140 officers were hurt. It's not true. That's not the case. There was only one person killed that day. And there were people who died that day, but had nothing to do. They were heart attacks. So the certification unfolded smoothly. No objections, protests, interruptions. Kamala Harris presided over the joint session with professionalism. She certified the elections that she lost, reaffirming her commitment to the Constitution. That's fine. She acted appropriately. Her actions highlighted the enduring importance of a peaceful transfer of power. That's the cornerstone of our democracy. Now, Republicans, of course, celebrated Trump's victory, which is, reclaiming some key swing states and winning the popular vote as well. And this remains a pivotal moment in American history. Yesterday, with this victory, and one of the greatest political comebacks in the history of the country, if not the greatest political comeback. And of course, the group of protesters 4 years ago. Temporary halt to the process and so forth. But I think it's unfair to say it was Donald Trump. This was not orchestrated by him or put up. And if you look at, and this is an interesting thing that I was reading about the other day, that the percentages of, you look at all the thousands of people that were arrested in all the riots and demonstrations, not so peaceful demonstrations in 2020, it's over 90% weren't ever charged with anything. But the people arrested from January 6th has a 75% conviction rate. There's some political bias going on in there. And the only person that was actually harmed and killed 4 years ago was Ashley Babbitt, 35 years old. And she died from a gunshot wound to the shoulder by a Capitol police officer who shot through a door. And I say that only because if you're a police officer, you should not be shooting a target you don't see. You should not be blindly shooting through a door with unarmed civilians on the other side. And if you freak out and you're that scared, maybe you shouldn't be carrying a badge and a gun. But she's the only one who died that day. And the District of Columbia's chief medical examiner determined that the other deaths that happened to occur that day, unrelated to the riot, it was Kevin Greason and Benjamin Phillips. They died of natural causes. And then there was Roseanne Boland's death. And that was an acute amphetamine intoxication. In other words, she overdosed. And nothing to do with the riot. And this Capitol Police officer, Brian Sicknick, initially reported to have died from injuries sustained during the riot. But his death is actually natural causes. Days later. And while tragic, these clarifications highlight the need for accurate reporting and understanding the events of that day, because they've been twisted. And they've been, Ted, you wanted to.
What about Epps? I mean, we have
Ray
him
Epps,
on video,
folks.
Literally provoking people who were in line.
Yep.
And charging that they charge on the Congress.
Yeah. And then he was on the FBI's most wanted list for 32 hours or some ridiculous thing and removed. And then Christopher Wray and the FBI being asked under oath, the Congress, how many operatives, how many informants they had, and they wouldn't answer and can't answer. So there's some stuff going on there, guys. And the certification process, it's not merely procedural, but it is a testament to the resilience of American democracy. It symbolizes the peaceful transfer of power. It does also represent the will, the respect for the will of the people, even in politically charged environments. And one of the reps noted that the absence of objections and minimal irregularities in this election is evident of a fair and transparent process. So looking ahead, 2025 certification marked to return normalcy, with lawmakers from both parties totally emphasizing order, civility, unity. And I saw the I think Gutfeld used this clip last night. Some reporter, she's tried to do this very dramatic reference to 4 years ago when the rioters stormed the Capitol and they were trying to commit insurrection and stop this. And all of a sudden, the snow that was falling just swooped up in this big whiteout, dumped all this snow on her and almost blew her off her feet. And I think it was Gutfeld who said, who knew Mother Nature was MAGA? I mean, they pretty much silenced it. It was kind of funny. But President Trump's President-elect Trump's celebration in his victory and Vice President Harris's gracious acknowledgement of defeat, it does exemplify a dual responsibilities in democracy: to celebrate victories, accept losses with dignity. In a time of political polarization, the peaceful certification of the 2024 election reaffirmed the strength of democratic traditions. It demonstrated that despite past challenges, the American experiment continues to thrive, guided by the principles that power rests with the people. And we see that being exercised in Canada. And Justin Trudeau having to leave office due to illness. People got sick of him. And I think this Pierre guy probably will be the next prime minister. And to Ken's point, I have seen clips of him. I have seen him interact with the media, and he's very much Trumpish in that way, in a almost a full contact sport that you're doing here. So yeah, that happens. So I had said this, and because we only got a couple of minutes, but the Department of Defense identified additional Chinese companies having ties to China military. Ooh, call me surprised. Companies include Tencent, CATL, that's battery production place, Comac, that's an aircraft manufacturer, Costco, not the thing, it's the shipping company, and others in tech, biotech, and infrastructure. In the strategic rationale here is the Pentagon emphasizes China's fusion of commercial and military technologies to strengthen its national power. And advanced technology such as AI, quantum computing, biotechnology are being integrated into military applications. And that's another area. And this is the thing, and we don't have the time for this, but I'll briefly touch on this. AI requires a great deal of energy to operate and infrastructure to operate. And the climate people don't want us to produce more energy, but AI could be the key to solving climate issues and energy issues. But we need to invest the energy and infrastructure into AI to solve that problem. So is it a moral dilemma, an ethical dilemma at this point? But in respect to this, immediate reactions, affected companies have denied that there are military ties and labeled their inclusion as mistakes. But another day, another time, we can talk about that. We have to wrap up the Tuesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. Don't forget to follow me on social media and get this show as a podcast wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Google Play. Check them all out and subscribe. Well, that will wrap up for me today. Back tomorrow at 1 o'clock, folks. Have a great day. Joe out.
Don't fool with Mother Nature.
Yeah.